Place is the American West. The characters, a prominent, close-knit family. The gambit, a brief excursion to the wrong side of the law.
It seemed easy. We felt that we were the right age to not be suspect. We'd never had any of our family had ever had any kind of criminal record, not one.
By 1985, Dick Kurth, like many American farmers and ranchers, was growing desperate.
Boy, there's nothing left, is there?
2 years of drought and low grain prices had left him and his wife, Judy, nearly $2 million in debt and facing foreclosure.
We were sitting in front of our bank officer and saying, what can we do? He said, short of growing marijuana, I don't know what you can do. Why don't you try that?
Do you think he was kidding?
We took it as such, yeah, but then, you know, the idea kind of gets to you.
We also found a farm publication that we'd picked up someplace. I can't find it. I wish I had it. But it said, marijuana, the savior of the family farm. I said, I think somebody is trying to tell us something.
It's difficult to imagine two more unlikely drug suppliers than Dick and Judy Kurth. After all, he had been a Republican state committeeman, Conservation Rancher of the Year, an appointee of the governor, and member of the local school board. She had once been runner-up for Mrs. Montana. What was it really that got you to do this?
It was the money.
It was that strong a driving force.
My grandfather came to that ranch, and so I didn't want to lose it.
In their own minds, if they were going to give the ranch to their grandchildren, there was now only one way out. So they made a plan and decided to take the risk.
We ran it as hard and fast as we could because we had it in our mind that we were going to do it for 2 years and we were going to be out of it.
Life in the drug underworld began, Dick Kurth says, in a Great Falls bar where he made some careful inquiries and eventually a connection. A local dealer supplied him with a few marijuana plants and a book on how to grow it. His 6,000-acre ranch seemed the perfect place to do it.
The type of a place we've got lent to the use of lots of electricity, so we weren't suspect for the use of a lot of electricity for lighting to grow the plants indoors. Our closest neighbor was 8 miles to the east and 3 miles to the south and so on. We're out in the wilds of Montana. We weren't, and I was a pillar of the community. People weren't looking at me for doing such things.
You thought you had it figured out?
I thought I had it figured out.
They concealed their growing and drying operation in the rafters of a barn and in 3 other buildings on the property. They installed grow lights and an intricate fertilization system that any county agent would have been proud of.
We just learned by hit or miss on a lot of it, and we've just developed a good system of doing it. And I'm not trying to be proud of that. I'm just telling you how it happened.
You're a fairly meticulous person.
I like to do a good job. If I'm going to do that, I did that well, too. Right.
Good product?
Well, everyone said it was excellent.
At first, the Kurths hid their operation from their family, but the business grew so quickly they needed help. So they turned to the only workforce they could trust, their own children. When your parents tell you they're growing marijuana, what do you tell them? What do you say?
We said we had to give a little thought. I mean, we're talking about 2 people that are pretty straight, or what we thought were pretty straight, if there is a straight and narrow. Why, I don't know. It was a total shock.
Why on earth did you ever decide to get involved in this?
I guess it just goes back to a great devotion to family. If that's a crime, I'm in trouble for it.
Well, you knew it was illegal and you were worried about getting caught. Did you think it was wrong?
Yes. Oh, yes. We all believed it was wrong. You ended up hating yourself for what you were doing.
What about the money? Did you get money out of it?
We didn't.
No.
The whole idea of doing it was to put the money back into the bank, and that's where it went, totally. It was to the bank.
But getting money into the bank would not be easy without raising suspicions. So Dick Kurth claims he went back to his friends at the Norwest Bank and told them exactly what was going on.
When you told the banker that you were growing marijuana, what was his reaction?
He said, well, that's good. Maybe that'll work.
That surprised you, that reaction?
Well, I guess not, because he gave us that idea, so I guess I just felt like, well, I guess he really meant that.
Then what happened?
When we did have cash, I went to him and said, all right, now how do we get it in there? And that's when he explained how to bring the money in and what increments to bring the money in and how to get the money into the bank, the cash into the bank.
Under federal law, banks must report cash deposits of $10,000 or more to the IRS to discourage money laundering. According to Dick Kurth, a Norwest vice president told him that the bank had its own internal controls and to keep his deposits under $3,000.
What was the bank's attitude towards this whole operation and enterprise? Was there a time at which
Oh, they took the money.
they know where it came from?
I'm sure they did. Since they explained so many times how to get it in there.
He said, no problem. He said, you just come in and deposit $2,940 to the outside teller with your car, and you come in and at the same time come inside and put another one deposit like that in at a teller at the window inside the bank, and maybe later that afternoon put in another one. And I've got bank records that prove that's what I did.
They knew it was for marijuana.
Oh, yes, absolutely, they did.
The Kurths have no witnesses to back up their story about the bank, only their bank statement showing multiple deposits on certain days and the results of a lie detector test. The Norwest Bank, which declined an interview, denies it all, calling the Kurths' accusations preposterous and a complete fabrication. But whether they're true or whether they're false had no bearing on the Kurths' own downfall. That was precipitated by their colleagues in crime, part of a fast and dangerous crowd they were now doing business with.
When did you first see them?
Well, they were coming down the hill, Steve, and it was 7:30 at night, so it was dark.
5 armed men forced their way onto the Kurth ranch.
And they put me up against the vehicle.
They have guns?
Yep. He had a revolver, and the other guy had a shotgun. And he flashed this badge like this, but it was dark. And he said, we're DEA agents, and we've had you under surveillance for a year.
But they were not drug agents. They were extortionists who terrorized members of the Kurth family, demanding $25,000, or they would call the police. The Kurths refused to pay.
Did you ever think when you first decided to get into this business that maybe you might run into some people that might not be so nice?
No, we really didn't think of that. No.
It's fairly naive in
I did,
hindsight,
pretty
isn't it?
naive. But you want to remember, we were pretty damn naive. You know, when I was 57 years old and I'm going to start in the pot business, I didn't know anything about it. Absolutely not at all. I've seen it on television. That's as far as I ever was exposed.
Only one of the extortionists has been caught. Law enforcement officials think he may have been connected to a rival drug gang. In any event, authorities were tipped off, and when the DEA and Choteau County Sheriff Paul Williams descended, this is what they found.
A very large operation, very sophisticated, very well planned. One of the largest grow operations that we know of in the Northwest, inside grow operation, that is.
There were more than 2,000 plants, gallons of hash tar oil, and more than $50,000 worth of growing and processing equipment. 7 members of the Kurth family were arrested.
I was relieved. I was frightened, but I was relieved. I really was, that the whole thing was over now. And at least we knew that they were real police officers, not someone who was there to attack us. Because I still have nightmares of all 5 of my kids being dead. And nothing is worth it. Nothing.
News of the arrest stunned the nearby community of Fort Benton. If the Kurths had expected sympathy or at least understanding from their neighbors, they were greeted instead with outrage and ostracism.
I was terribly, terribly disappointed in them, that they could stoop to this. I mean, we could all use a little more money, but not any of us, except the Kurths, would stoop to that.
They've brought a criminal element into this county, like the people that worked them over for the money. What would happen, say, if our kids were staying with their kids when this took place? We could have had children injured or anything else. This is the danger that they've exposed this whole community to that I don't like.
The people in town think that you let them down, that there's a moral failing here somewhere. that you exposed the community to dangerous people, that you exposed their children to what they consider to be dangerous drugs?
We made an effort not to have that product in that community. We also made an effort that we burned all of the leaves and what everyone would call trash that had a lot of value. We burned it because we wanted a product that the people we supplied called lawyer bud. It went to the doctors and the lawyers and the accountants and the people that had the money. It was expensive, and we went that way and destroyed that other part because we didn't want it sold on the street corner to the kids.
Did you feel guilty while all this was happening?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. That was an awful pull between the guilt that you knew that what was happening, what you were doing every day, and then you would go to your grandchildren's basketball games that night, and yeah, there was a guilt.
This isn't a little case of shoplifting. I mean, when they did it, they did a biggie. And, I mean, this is a horrible crime. Affected a lot of lives, probably ruined a lot of lives, and I think they should be punished. All of them.
People here were outraged not only by what the Kurths did, but also by the leniency of the sentences they received. The 7 members of the Kurth family were allowed to plea bargain to felony drug possession charges with intent to sell. But only Dick and Judy Kurth would actually go to jail.
Okay. Did you give Grandpa a big hug?
You bet.
Okay, sweetheart. Don't ever forget I love you.
Their grown children all received suspended sentences from Montana Court Judge Chan Edian.
It struck me as something of an American tragedy, which it is. Here's a man who, as fine a life as could have been led right up to that point where their ranch and farm operation was going down the drain, and in desperation he went that route.
Dick Kurth received 4 20-year concurrent prison terms, but 15 years were suspended. Judy Kurth was sentenced to 5 years in the state prison, but 4 years were suspended.
The standing they've had in that community is wrecked. They're self-confessed felons, and that stigma is going to be on them for many, many years probably. And I felt basically that in itself was something of a punishment.
You said that marijuana is somewhat of a soft drug, not as serious as cocaine or crack or heroin.
Right.
What are your thoughts on marijuana?
It doesn't cause, it's not the social evil that crack or cocaine or heroin or even alcohol is.
Have you ever smoked it yourself?
Years and years ago I tried it, a couple, 3 joints, and it didn't do anything, so that was the end of that.
I can't condone what those folks did because I've seen the results of those drugs and what they have done to people.
You think they're a menace to society here in Fort Benton?
They broke the law. They got caught. I think where we fell down was in our judicial system.
I go back to the Depression years, and there was reports made of individual some ranchers who saved the old homestead by making and selling moonshine. Well, now this, with the Kurth situation, is parallel, but of course it's on a larger scale.
Beyond their jail terms, the Kurths still face financial ruin. The state of Montana is trying to collect $750,000 in drug taxes, and the Norwest Bank is still threatening to foreclose on the ranch.
Did you really believe that you could go into the marijuana business and pay off nearly $2 million worth of debts without getting into the bind that you're in now?
We could have stayed at it in 2 years, we could have. Yeah, we could have.
If you hadn't gotten caught?
If we hadn't gotten caught.
Do you think that, that there's a lesson in this for people? What is it?
I don't think that probably possessions are that much, they don't amount to that much material things. I now even wonder whether our land was worth it.
Since our report aired last fall, Judy Kurth has been paroled. Dick Kurth continues to serve his sentence in the Montana Men's Prison.
Coming up next on West 56.